What I was doing at the moment didn't feel like I was making any sort of impact. It felt like I was just another cog in the wheel, another standard report, another, whatever. And I wanted to be able to do something that I was proud of and something that I was passionate about. And sauna use I had become obsessed with well over 10 years ago as a customer, ultimately of the place I wound up acquiring last year, and found it so passionate that the benefits that I saw, whether it was with sleep, which is the crux of everything in your health, whether mental, physical, what have you, but I knew that it was something where I needed to take the leap. And then, of course, once you're there, you find yourself in these circles and in these rooms talking with people that provide other opportunity about, what are you working on right now? Well, I'm thinking about opening up this new technology mammography company. Great. How can I invest?
My guest today is Kristen Nicholson, who's the founder of Urban Sweat, a luxury wellness studio that offers infrared sauna, red light therapy, and cold plunge, which she launched in 2022. It has grown from a single location to 12 in the last 3 years, and she's now a serial entrepreneur, having launched Comfort Imaging, which provides women with non-compression mammography, a new technology that ensures pain-free, efficient, and advanced imaging that treats women with dignity and provides them with exceptional quality imaging. Prior to all of this, she spent 22 years in corporate roles in the thriving Nashville healthcare ecosystem, most recently as a sales and account management leader. She's long been obsessed with personal health, working out, and infrared sauna. She seeks to show all of us that we can take our health into our own hands to be proactive to fight disease. She's fueled by the belief that self-care is truly healthcare and is passionate about being a part of this wellness revolution. Kristen, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's good to talk with you today, and there's a lot of ground to cover because you've done a lot of super interesting things.
In a short amount of time.
Yeah, that's right. So just to start, I heard you give a recent interview where you compared entrepreneurship to a cold plunge. And you said, you get in a cold plunge, you're in fight or flight for the first 30 seconds, and you have to breathe through it. By the 45-second to 1 minute mark, you start to settle, though it's still uncomfortable. And in the next 30 seconds, you settle more and want to stay another 30 seconds. And when you finally get out of the cold water, you feel powerful, proud, energetic, and stronger than ever. That's such a unique and interesting comparison to entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And just to follow up on that, first, could you define what a cold plunge is? Is it an act? Is it a thing? And then second, beyond that, how is entrepreneurship like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I remember saying that, and I think when I answered that question, I was really feeling the roller coaster, which any entrepreneur knows that you can be on a roller coaster for a day, an hour, a year, and it never really stops. You've got high highs and low lows. And so when I think about what your journey is in a cold plunge, you're really going through the highs and lows of emotions and what it can actually bring up. And it is true, those first 30 seconds you are in fight or flight and you want to get out, abort mission. And that's like early days of entrepreneurship is, did I make the right choice? Should I go back to the security of where I was before and to that same place? And then you start to settle in, but it's still very uncomfortable and all of those things. And then at the end of the day and at the end of the hour, at the end of the year, at the end of your series until you sell or whatever that might be, you look back and you're really proud of taking the leap and betting on yourself. And so I liken that to entrepreneurship because you definitely feel that. And a cold plunge is, by the way, any sort of cold water immersion that may be whether you put ice in it yourself or you buy a souped up unit that has it itself. You can go from 37 degrees to, you see people plunge at 55, 60 degrees also. At our studio, we set it to 37 to 39 degrees and really kind of go for it. But it's really taken off in recent years. I mean, there was times when you couldn't open up Instagram without seeing your favorite celebrity and some trash can with ice in it. And what you've seen of it is a lot of mental health benefits and the power that comes from them.
Most people, I know, probabilistically, a person listening to this hasn't done a cold plunge, but they know what it's like to take a cold shower or to jump in a cold lake on a spring day or even a cold bath maybe. And so the shock that you experience is probably the most salient thing that you will remember after you do it. And what you're, I think, so brilliantly describing there is that you're getting entrepreneurship to be in that kind of that range. Someone's seeing that from the perspective of the shock of what it's like. And you mentioned high highs and low lows. And just to confirm, have you experienced high highs on this journey?
Today? Because yes.
And have you experienced low lows?
Today, no. It really is true. Sometimes it feels hard. It always feels hard, but you think you're not making any traction, that nobody's listening, that what you're doing doesn't matter. And then you open up to weeks like this week alone where we've had a rough month owning a sauna business in the summer. Everybody that owns a sauna business in the summer knows that this is our toughest season. We have the same series and seasons as gyms typically do. Everybody's traveling in the summer and they're back. And so it's hard and you forget about it every year. You think, oh, this is terrible. Am I going out of business? And you're like, this was the same. Going back and you look and it's the same thing as last year. And of course we came out of it. So here we are post-Labor Day when we're recording this and people are getting back into routines and things are starting to click. It's like the message finally gets heard. I've spent a long time in sales in my career, all of my life, and every job I've ever had since I started working when I was 14. And you know that you have to say the message X amount of times before people start to hear it or it clicks. And in a time when you've got 3 seconds to capture somebody's attention before the next scroll, then you got to figure out ways to make that happen quickly and often and turn that into dollars.
In those tough moments, I'm an entrepreneur too, so I know what low lows feel like and high highs, and it's easy to reflect back when you could count on a paycheck arriving every 2 weeks or once a month or whatever the cadence is. What is it about this journey that keeps you from just pulling the plug and going back? What do you think that is?
Yeah, I think I've always been an entrepreneur at heart. And I think back to my career that I've had, so lucky here in the healthcare industry of Nashville that, if you're either in music or healthcare, right? And I don't sing, so this is where I landed. And I always had people in my life where I either wrote their business plan or I supported them or pushed them or helped them start a business or invested in them to do that. And I was so risk averse that I wouldn't do it. I always admired my friend who, would go to Costa Rica for a month and come back and snowboard for a month and open up a, whatever business he had in Vail, Colorado. And I thought, wow, I want to be like him. But what's he doing about a 401k? I was Little Miss Responsibility Pants. And so it was hard for me to think about taking that leap. But you get to a point where I think in your career or whatever that point is in your life, it's not about an age. It's not about how many years you spent doing it. It's to a point of where, what am I doing here? What is the impact that I'm making? And is this what I want to do? Is this the legacy that I want to leave? I think 2020 brought a lot of perspective to people for things like that and thinking about, gosh, who would have ever even imagined this terrible thing? But should we not make it past this, right? What was it all for? And what I was doing at the moment didn't feel like I was making any sort of impact. It felt like I was just another cog in the wheel, another standard report, another, whatever. And I wanted to be able to do something that I was proud of and something that I was passionate about. And sauna use I had become obsessed with well over 10 years ago as a customer, ultimately of the place I wound up acquiring last year, and found it so passionate that the benefits that I saw, whether it was with sleep, which is the crux of everything in your health, whether mental, physical, what have you. But I knew that it was something where I needed to take the leap. And then, of course, once you're there, you find yourself in these circles and in these rooms talking with people that provide other opportunity about, what are you working on right now? Well, I'm thinking about opening up this new technology mammography company. Great. How can I invest? No, I want you to come on as a partner, and you find yourself in these rooms and it just sort of happens organically. So I guess it's true, that you're like the 5 people that you surround yourself with. And I just found myself in different rooms with people that are passionate and hungry and risky and want to just put it all out there.
And you also put the ball in motion, and then that started to open up other things. It's interesting. So you were in a corporate role, weren't getting a lot of meaning. You had a history of, on the side, helping people, writing their business plan or just being a supporter. And you recognized a call to entrepreneurship from that. And then you combine the lack of meaning, a cataclysmic event like a pandemic to make you question, like, what is life really about? And then you put those together, and then that becomes the impetus for you to really jump out. Now, what's really interesting, like if I think of a random venture capital investor of 2021 and someone gives that person your resume, they're going to say, I'm not investing. This is a corporate career lifer. I'm not investing in this person. And yet, after 20 years, you made that jump. What's been most surprising to you in making the jump into entrepreneurship?
Well, I mean, I guess it's true, right? That you never work a day for something that you love so much. You know, I don't even draw a paycheck from myself. I think that might surprise people. I still am living off corporate Kristen, 20 years ago. And that might make me foolish, but every dollar goes back into my business, in both of the businesses. And so I think the surprise is that when you're so passionate about something, you just get up and you do it. It's a no-brainer. You have to jump in because you're the boss. You're the one, right? If somebody calls in sick, then you're the one that's working. If XYZ happens, then you're the one that's going for that. You're the face, and when you have a service-based business like I do on both sides, you're the face of that business also. And so when you care about both of those businesses and you care about what you're doing and you care about the impact that you're making, because it's huge on both businesses, it's huge on both businesses, then you just find so much meaning in that. And I just never had that before. And the safety net of having that paycheck that I can count on, every other Friday, or contributing to a 401k. And I think about it, but it doesn't drown me in any way, because it's just the passion that fuels me every morning. Like, it surprises people. I still get up at 4 a.m. every morning and work out. I got nowhere I have to be necessarily. Now, I stack my days pretty good with meetings, but that's just a discipline of getting up and getting after it and being available for the people and being the resource that people need throughout the day too. So
what comes across is this abundance of meaning that you're getting from the work that you're doing now. It seems like if you were to contemplate on a bad day, maybe I'll go join another company, the bigger risk would be losing meaning, trading the meaning that you have for not having meaning again.
For sure. And I think, what I really enjoyed about being an entrepreneur, to anybody that knows me, obviously you know me, I don't like to take very long to make decisions, right? It's a feeling, and I'm an action gal. I'm a get stuff done gal, which was an award at a previous organization I worked with. And it's nice to not be in these big companies where your ideas or an implementation or any sort of project just sits on a table and waits to get approved and goes nowhere. And all this time that you spent doing that, I just feel like every minute and every hour when you're an entrepreneur matters, and decisions can be made quickly. And I like that. If my director of operations were to call right now and say, hey, this didn't work, or what is our opportunity here? I say, let's just do it and test it. There's something really special about not getting in the way, not letting perfect get in the way of progress, as they say, and putting together that minimal viable product and just saying, I don't know, let's test it and see if it works. Let's test it for a week, and if it doesn't, then we pivot. And I love doing that, because I love the switch up and just trying anything and seeing what works and what sticks.
One of the things that you said a few minutes ago is that you don't draw a paycheck, which, I liken that to placing bets. And you're effectively saying, I'm betting on myself with my own money.
Well, I mean, it's interesting that you say it in that way. I don't know if I've told this story before. The day before I decided to quit my corporate job, I heard 3 times that day, Kristen, I don't know why you don't just bet on yourself. At what point are you going to stop and just bet on yourself? And somebody else said it, and I thought, has this been said to me before and I wasn't listening, or I didn't hear it? Or am I just hearing this all today and I'm listening, and then now I'm going to take action? And so bet on yourself is sort of a mantra of mine in everything that I do. So it's interesting that you say it that way, because that lingo really matters to me. And that's 100% what it is betting on yourself. You have to.
You look back 3 years ago when you heard that day that you heard it. What do you tell yourself now? Because at the time you weren't sure. It could have been a number of different things.
Well, now just the benchmark has changed. I have to get up every day and bet on myself. every single day, especially in a service-based business. And it's something new every time, right? It's where's the bar and measuring the risk of those bets on yourself. And I do it every single day.
Back when you made that initial plunge into entrepreneurship, when you took that bet, when those messages all aligned with what was resonating with you, what were the first 3 major decisions in those first 90 days?
Yeah. A lot of people, I learned so much. I Google something every day, right, in business. You don't have to have it all figured out, obviously. And I remember somebody asking if I had a business plan, and I didn't have a business plan, but I had some things that I had written in the notes section of my phone when I'd go out for walks in the afternoon to think about it.
Might be more actionable than some of the corporate business plans I've seen.
Probably, I've been a part of, that's for sure. But, and it would be a commercial broker saying, do you have a brand book? Can you send it over? And absolutely, I have a brand book. Google's brand book, what is it? Puts it together quickly and sends it over. And so the big decisions were, obviously, quit. When are you going to quit your job and timing? What are you going to do in the interim? And then how are you going to open this new venture and with how many people and, run lean, still make a profit, that sort of thing. And I made a lot of mistakes. I still make mistakes every day. I ran too lean in the beginning. I think about one of the young ladies who helped me in the beginning, and I don't even know how she still talks to me because it was just me and her the whole time.
What was the cost of that one, by the way, of running too lean?
Well, just burnout. I mean, we were working 16-hour days, and this was still, back in the day where if somebody was sick, they had to stay home and for X amount of days. And, there were a lot of times I would have to text her and say, I don't feel well. You've got to work open to close every day this week. And we're open 12 hours a day. So burnout, and then not having enough time to work on the business because I was so in the business. And sometimes I feel that way too. I have to self-check myself and say, what am I contributing to the overall brand, and what am I contributing to just this particular studio? And I try to spread myself across the franchise to the ones that I own. I own 3 studios myself, and support growth and think strategically. And you've got to remove yourself from the business sometimes. And I don't have the time to get away and think about things and really clear my head, but I have to have a safe space for myself where I can do that sort of creative and strategic thinking, because it can't happen when all these other things or inputs are coming in.
Yeah. The on the business, in the business, I don't know, what is that, a model or a mantra, or maybe both? That's Michael Gerber, I believe, the E-Myth Revisited. And kind of the point there is it's easy to get sucked in to the day-to-day. And I always contemplate, is that because it's easier? Or is it because it's noisier? Or is it because it's so truly urgent? How have you experienced those 3 different dimensions of being pulled into the day-to-day?
That same triage that you just talked about is, and I've listened to that book a couple of times actually on my walks. Nothing really is that urgent. I mean, knock on wood, you don't have those moments as much. And if you do, you quickly pivot, and that's what it is. Most of it is noise. And I have a director of operations who really helps me on the franchise side and in the studio side that I own. And I have to remind her too, we see things on social media and she'll send it to me. And I say, that has nothing to do with us. We've got to stay in our own lane. We stay focused. We know who our community, we know who our guests are, we know who our team is. And so ignore it. That's noise. Let's stay focused. And we've set our strategy, and let's keep going down this path. And to be able to pull yourself really out of it is a cognizant decision. It is easy to just be in it. It would be really easy for me to look at our schedule today at Studio One, whatever, and say, oh, this customer that, make sure you do this. And what I have always thought, and all the teams I've ever led in my corporate life, I always said, and didn't understand my leaders when they didn't feel the same way, was hire people that are smarter than you. And then you never have to think about it because you trust people. And I think you and I have both worked in organizations before where our leaders didn't think that way, and we felt it. And I never want anybody that works with me to feel that. I don't like to micromanage. I don't have time to micromanage. And so the team that I have around me and the operating partners that own each of my franchises are so sharp and savvy and scrappy, and I love it. And you just surround yourself with those people that they understand what the mission, vision, values are. They're driving forward, and they count on me to either be there if they need them, but to be ready to take the next leap. And I feel that right now. I joked about something, somebody said, what do you want to do with Urban Sweat? And I joked with what my response is, and I won't tell you now, revisit me in 6 months. And I have a meeting next week that is about that very thing. And it's a wild idea, and it really was a joke. And, and now here we are, and it's a possibility. So you got to have the space to have those wild ideas and then go have those meetings to make it happen. And I'm excited about where we are right now.
Yeah. So that quality of finding people who are smarter than you and empowering them is not, surprisingly, not that common. But there's another factor here too, which is this Urban Sweat is your baby. Like, you created it. It's got to succeed. And that puts a different level on delegation because the person you're delegating to doesn't own it. How do you get comfortable?
Yeah. Well, I've been really lucky, to be fair. It is hard to find those people. I've led a lot of teams for, 20 plus years, and it's hard to get that buy-in. I like to just share what the vision is of what we're doing and why we do it. And you've got to find the people that share your same passions and that believe that. I keep talking about our director of operations, and she wants things worse than I do sometimes. But that's an anomaly. I found a diamond in the rough, and you got to keep sort of supporting that. And sometimes I feel bad about the amount of things I share with her, but I want her to see the bigger picture, because I don't act like we're all going to retire from Urban Sweat, right? And so I want her to be able to learn something to take to the next place. And I've always sort of thought that way when I think about the teams that I've ever led and the people. A lot of times I've brought along teammates that I've worked with before into my new workplace back in my corporate life. And it was because there was that bond, there was that synergy, there was that communication, there was that trust. The trust is the word, right? And to be able to run things when I can't give it the full attention. But it all happens with communication too. And I think that that's really important, because if I can't say, this is the plan, this is where we're going, this is where we need to pivot, then I've failed them as a leader because they don't know what I'm thinking. And so I'm very clear about that when I hire anybody.
This concept that you're talking about, I think, is really powerful. When what you're saying is, I build people, I don't manage output. And so if you're building people, the first person who notices is the person who's being built. Like, even if you don't say it, but they see the care, they see the intention, and that inspires ownership, which is the trust that you're talking about. And if more managers were to act that way, that I'm not here to do the job, I'm here to build the people, then you would see a lot more, I think, impact in the world.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I think that's where things were missing for me in the corporate world. And I think about one of the larger teams that I led, probably it wasn't the largest team, but it was such a strong team. And when I could see it on their faces that they didn't feel trusted and empowered, then that hurt me. I'm an empath in that way.
Your leader didn't trust them and you by extension.
That's right. The beatings will continue until morale improves sort of mentality. It just wasn't working. and I could see that, and it hurt my feelings because I really love the teams that I build and support and that are there with me in the trenches. And I remember saying that to somebody at that place when she had a tough call with a client, and she said, what do you want to do? And I said, I'm in the trenches with you. I'm on these calls. I feel the heat, and we're going to get to the other side of this. And so that's where I get really proud of what's been built. And that's why if somebody decides to move on and go someplace else, or I help them move on to something that really fits their strengths, I don't feel personal about it, because it was a relationship that was really so powerful in the moment, and I trust that they're doing the right thing for themselves and are stronger because of it.
You're saying that it's not a job, it's not work, it's life. You're living life.
Right. Yeah, I've never really bought into the work-life balance thing. We spend so much time with the people that we work with, and I really just call it doing life. And that's in any relationship, right? That can be in your personal relationships. And I think about that. Not everything is the honeymoon phase. And so to me, the real meat of a relationship, either personal or business, is sort of when things are going wrong. That's when you learn. Anyway, you don't learn from your successes, you learn from your failures. And that's, I like the sticky moments like that.
I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about mammography, which is the latest venture. Tell us a little bit, what is this difference in technology and why is it significant?
Yeah, so Comfort Imaging was the fourth in the country to have this technology. It is a breast CT, so it's not necessarily a mammography machine. We do mammography studies, but the machine itself is a CT from Coning Health. And it is really interesting. What we found is 6 out of 10 women are not getting their annual mammograms for whatever reason. Maybe they're concerned about radiation. Maybe they're concerned about the compression component of it. Maybe they're concerned because they think something's there and maybe they just don't want to know, is kind of what we're seeing a lot of this. And so, a lot of people in the beginning, because it is a new technology, a lot of people have a lot of opinions about it, and that's fine. 25 years ago, I built a women's imaging center out east of town, and at the time, 3D technology was new, and insurance wasn't covering it at the time, and it was new to physicians and radiologists, and they were unsure about it. And I find ourselves having those same conversations that we had 25 years ago, because to me, this is the latest and the greatest technology. This will be covered by all carriers, and this is the wave. I don't know why you would do it the other way, to be honest with you. And did I mention that there's probably a slight amount of delusion that needs to come with being an entrepreneur? But I truly believe that, and the reason I believe that is because I've seen it. So I say, hey, doc, you keep those 4 ladies that want the traditional mammography. That is totally fine. I'm asking for the 6. Just give me the 6. I don't want the 4. And what we've seen is that people will drive for hours. 3, 4, 5 hours to come and get this scan. They've been waiting for it. I read the comments that people are saying on our social media about, finally people are caring about women's health. And we're seeing that with our hospital systems too, that are starting to dedicate whole practices and strategies behind women's health, and which is smart, since women are typically the ones that are making healthcare decisions for their families, to be able to support the very women that are making those decisions. And so it's really neat. It's a table, all gravity based. So you lay on it and it scans each breast. It takes 7 seconds each side. And, I hear our guests leave the center and them say, wow, is that it? And that's the best compliment I've ever heard in my life is, wow, that's it, right? Because I've never thought that when I was going to get my annual mammogram before. You're just like, God, 365 more days till I have to come do this again. It's not a ton of fun. And so I love the newness of the technology. I love that these 6 out of 10 women are coming to get mammograms for the first time in their lives, and they can have that confidence in walking out the door that this is the best scan with the best clarity and is catching things that traditional mammography has not been able to. Because it is gravity-based, you're able to get back a little further on the chest plane, and to the point where you can see ribs in some of the scans. And I geek out. I'm no radiologist, but I do geek out about the scans and the power that comes for that, and just the way that the women leave feeling reassured about these scans. So I'm excited about the future of that. We've met a lot of great people that we're working with, other people in different areas, like type centers, in Dallas and in Georgia and St. Louis. And it's exciting to work with them because we're all figuring this out together and having referral sources to be able to figure out who can do peer-to-peer and learn more about this technology.
It's compelling, and I can see the passion that you have for it. The strategic logic, though, you're essentially operating more of a wellness setup with the sauna, cold plunge, infrared, or red light therapy. What is the strategic logic that connects that to mammography?
Well, I think they're the same. they're the same to me. It's all proactive healthcare. And it's somebody, I think a lot of times people don't realize the power of infrared sauna, red light, and cold plunge on your mental and physical health. I could go on for days about it and the things that we've seen come from it. You'll never hear me talk about urban sweat and say, come sweat out your weekend or sweat out your vacation or get in your skinny jeans or your weekend on Broadway. You'll never hear me talk about like that. What you will hear me talk about is come to urban sweat and have the best night's sleep of your life. And guess who has sleep problems? Everyone in the world. And so that's the number one thing that you will notice when you walk away from urban sweat. What happens when you have a good night's sleep? You eat better the next day. Your mind's more clear. You make good decisions. You're in a better mood. dopamine, all of the things are sort of clicking and working in your body. So there's a reason why we say self-care is healthcare. I've seen way too many things that are so powerful come away from that studio that I would have never expected. Whether it was our lady that comes in and does red light therapy twice a week who has Parkinson's, who's able to keep her job as an oral maxo nurse because her tremor has stopped. Or whether it's the young lady that came in and she had a lot of pain in her abdomen area and it was because she had endometriosis and she was just trying to get something as a Band-Aid before she had to go have endometriosis surgery. And her gynecologist said, just keep doing red light. We're going to call off the surgery. We saved her a whole surgery. I'm not a doctor. I just want to say that out front, but I don't have to be to see the things come out of what we've seen in the studio, whether it's the mental health aspects of a cold plunge and us coaching somebody through it who may have a PTSD moment and have a memory and then them come out on the other side of it. It's so powerful. And so you ask about what are the synergies between it. Same thing. It's a woman making a decision to proactively come and get a scan to ensure that her health is optimal. Same very thing. Unfortunately, it's only a one-time-a-year scan. You can obviously come to Urban Sweat 7 days a week, which we like, but that is exactly why we say self-care is healthcare. It's the proactive approach of not letting it get too far, of taking care of your bodies, and the power that comes from that and how confident people feel when they're walking away from it is magic.
On mammography, like this new thing, when did you start? When did you launch Comfort Imaging?
Yeah, it's been June. It was mid-June when we started seeing patients, yeah.
What kind of resistance have you faced in getting that off the ground?
Yeah, so it is technically a diagnostic mammogram, and so a lot of physicians are not used to sending an order for their patients to get a mammogram. They're like, my patient should be able to schedule her own mammogram, and because it's diagnostic, we do require an order. We haven't really seen the resistance. It's not currently covered by insurance, but people are more than willing to pay out of pocket for this. It's a reasonable price for that, and if anybody's familiar with anything in insurance, and I think back to my old world, is sometimes not having insurance, I mean, not in catastrophic events, but paying cash pay often gets you a lower cost to something anyway, and we feel like that's been really easy for us to be able to navigate. It's been hard to refer on, if anybody needs a biopsy or a follow-up study to take a look at a spot that seemed suspicious. That sometimes has been hard because physicians don't want to learn the new technology. Some physicians don't want to learn the new technology to be able to read the study, to be able to take the next steps. But luckily this week we found a lot of great partners that are willing and want to because they know that this is the direction that the field is going.
You're connecting, for obvious reasons, the comfort imaging to better health outcomes. And you've described better health outcomes for Urban Sweat. And I don't think anyone would ever expect insurance to cover a sauna treatment.
Interestingly enough. It should. It's so great for heart health. I mean, sauna use 3 to 4 times a week can cut all-cause mortality by 40 to 50%. We were just talking about Dr. Rhonda Patrick, and she is a huge advocate of that stat, and I repeat it. So, I did a big campaign a couple of years ago for the American Heart Association, and the reason that I did that is because sauna is so powerful for heart health. So we have partnered with a company called TrueMed. It's Casey Means, if you've heard of Dr. Casey Means, is a company, and what they do is you go through and you do a short survey and you get a letter of medical necessity. And obviously with that, then you get reimbursed with your insurance company. So whatever your company is that your self-insured employer uses, you're able to go and get reimbursed for that. And we also take HSA and FSA cards. So it is actually covered by.
Well, that's interesting to hear. You were commenting on how with comfort imaging, there's self-pay is a big part of that. And I was connecting that to the wellness component, which is somewhat philosophically ironic that the things that may set us up the best for health aren't the things that we would have reimbursement support in many cases. But it's good to hear that there's actually examples of that.
They're coming around.
Yeah, examples of that being all of this together, comfort imaging, Urban Sweat, being an entrepreneur. How has that caused you to experience life differently?
Wow. I think everything for me has changed. It's stressful, but it's a ton of fun. I think people that know me, who are around me the most, see that in me. They see that I'm fulfilled. Ironically, it's made me more relaxed. So I certainly don't sweat the small stuff anymore. It can feel hard when a lot of small
You
stuff
sweat
adds
so much
up.
at Urban Sweat.
Yeah. See, if you the infrared is really no, but I'm a lot more chill about
So perspective.
things. Yeah, I just think let's roll with it. Let's relax. This is not the end of the world, and it's made me more relaxed overall because of that. And I trust myself. I've made bad decisions. I've failed, and that's okay. That's where the learnings came from, and whatever the moment that we're in, we can get out of. And if not, I always say everything's figure outable, and so I don't really worry that much about the small things.
So as you think now about people who are following behind you, someone is watching this and your story is resonating. Like they're looking at you and they're hearing you talk and they're thinking, that's me. I need to go there. And they're not satisfied with something. Maybe they can't put their finger on it. How would you counsel someone who's in that position of they don't know exactly what to do, but they are really on an emotional level, really resonating with what they've heard from your own story?
I get a number of requests a week to, pick my brain or go for a walk. When you go for a walk, those are the best meetings, right?
What makes them the best?
Well, you're moving. There's something for the step and the side to side piece for your mind. And, I want to move my body. And I just think it changes the conversation, even if you're having hard conversations with maybe a partner or somebody like that. But
something to comment on that, I've heard someone compare it to, there's a type of therapy that I don't know very well, but it's called EMDR. Do you know what it stands for? I don't remember off the top of my head.
I don't remember, but it's the side to side. That's what it is.
Yeah, the therapy works like it's putting your eyes, like it's trying to mimic REM sleep, and it's putting your eyes, and it kind of puts your brain in that state where there's a lot more, you're much more in touch with what your desires are, what your emotions are. So anyway, I've distracted you, but...
No, that is exactly true. It's the step-by-step. If you ever have listened to binaural beats and it goes from one ear to the other, if you're feeling any sort of anxiety, it calms you within seconds. I'm into it. I have a number of friends that have done EMDR, and it's saved their lives. So I'm a big fan of it.
Yes, but a walk somehow kind of mentally kind of puts you in the same place. Plus, you're with someone, which is fantastic. So anyway, people ask for a walk.
We talk about those things. I think if anybody is thinking about taking the leap, there are different age groups. I think of people. We're growing up with this latest generation who everybody is going to college because they want to be an influencer when they graduate. And I mean that's great, but not everybody can be an influencer. And so let's pick a skill that I think about my niece who will be graduating in May. So Sarah, get a job. No, I'm kidding. But you talk through these things and what are the risks and who is the support team behind you, and it doesn't have to be an idea that is brand new. It can be something that's been done, but done with a twist and done your way and with your culture that you build. And so I would just say it's not easy. I think a lot of people see people that have their own businesses and think, wow, they can set their own schedule and they can come and go as they please and grab lunch and do this and travel. It's not as easy as it seems. I took my first vacation this past June for the first time in many years, and I worked the entire time.
So that wouldn't be the reason to...
Yeah, please, if you think it's easy or you want to go on vacation, this is not the job for you. But the reward on the other side of that and really getting strong on your why of why you want to do it, I think is so important.
You mentioned something about having the support of people who are behind you. You probably know this. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to assume, but in my experience, when you get deep into a corporate role, your head's down in that, you spend more time navigating inside the company than outside the company. So I would imagine that some people hearing this are in that situation where they haven't set up a coffee or attended a networking event in quite some time and may feel inadequate on the support network. What has worked for you to cultivate support?
It sounds funny. I keep talking about my afternoon walks. I get my most thinking and best thinking done there. Turn off the world and decide if I'm going to listen to my breath or listen to the traffic or listen to a podcast or listen to music or frequencies or what have you. And in the beginning, for me, I was listening to a podcast that is no longer on, but in the intro of that podcast, it had a really strong intro of saying, when shit goes sideways, and it will, this is the group to come to. And it was called Girlfriends in Business. And it was led by these three women. Ultimately, I wound up becoming really great friends with one of the women comment on there because I reached out to her and said, hey, I just want you to know I'm going to quit my job tomorrow. And it's because I've listened to the intro of this podcast 100 times today. And my final plea to say, tell me to stop. But no, she, she replied and she was like, I'm moving to Nashville next week. And we became friends and she's been so great. And so you may not have a person. It may not be a person that's your support system. It may be just watching podcasts and listening to podcasts or reading a book or listening to TED Talks to get inspiration or whatever it is. It doesn't necessarily have to come from a person. My family is not entrepreneurs. Nobody's ever done this before. Most of my then friends, make new friends, but my old friends are not entrepreneurs. And so when I talk about, when they say, how are you? And I tell them about things going on, they're my cheerleaders to say, oh, you'll get past this. If anybody can do it, you can do it. But it's also really helpful to have a group of people who are really doing the same thing that say, I've been there and this is how I handled it and this is where I messed up and this is, whatever. And so it's been really nice because I don't expect my family and friends to totally understand this journey. And I certainly didn't think my colleagues at the time could do it because you're right. We were all head down and in survival mode to some degree. And it's hard to be creative in that type of space to be able to remove yourself from it. For any entrepreneur, there is a group called EO, Entrepreneur Organization. It's worldwide. Most big cities have it. Nashville happens to be the third largest chapter, I think, in the world, which is a testament to the healthcare community that we have here and all the startups and all the other things and all the people moving here and starting businesses and the opportunity. And they had a program at the Entrepreneur Center. It's called Catalyst. And I was lucky enough that Michael Burcham taught the class over the 6 months that we took it, who I think the world of and is a genius and had known from the healthcare world for many years. And there was a lot of tough love coming out of those meetings. We all walked in to companies and, it's all on our website. And he's like, I looked at everybody's website and 99% of you, I don't know what you do and or why you're doing it. And so you could see us all go, make new website, I'll make a note. Then after that, you break into these forums. After the 6-month class, now we're in this forum and I'm thinking I'm in this group with this lawn care guy and somebody who has chocolate here and a charcuterie board. And you're thinking, we don't have anything in common. How are we even going to be able to relate to each other? And it was a very structured meeting and we would come in and you would put your phones away for 5 hours once a month. And, you sort of dreaded that and had some anxiety going into that of being away from your phone and being with these strangers who you've got no relationship with, and you were sharing how much revenue you brought in last month and what you said you were going to do last month and have you done it and why haven't you done it, and people to hold you accountable. And what I realized in that group of people that you thought you had nothing in common with is that no matter what your business is, we all have the same problems, the same hiring problems, the same firing problems, the same policy and procedure problems, same legal. And so that's where I really found my people. And those are the people that I call when I'm having those hard days and I say, hey, do you have a minute to talk? And they're always able to give you some sort of constructive something, not just to pump me up, message like maybe your friends and family would. So the power is there.
So community is vital. And EO or Catalyst has given you they put a structure to how community can work with people who have like scenarios, meaning entrepreneur, early stage.
Yeah, and I mean, in Nashville, we've got a ton of entrepreneur programs. I mean, there's women's only groups. There's, specific political or church type groups, and the community and the resources are here. That's for sure. We're really lucky in that.
That's awesome. So October, today is September 12th of 2025, and October is Women's
Breast Cancer
Awareness Month.
Yep.
So what happens with comfort imaging in a month that where so much awareness is put on that important part of life?
Well, that's what the power of that month, where no matter if you're watching an NFL football game or what you're doing, there's a lot of pink everywhere. There's a lot of awareness. There's a lot of opportunity to donate to these causes. And really what that all does is just bring the conversation to the forefront, which is what we're trying to do 365. So we're excited about October. We're excited that we've got a couple of months under our belt and we figured, sort of workflows and things like that out. And we are open and really willing and ready and to take these women on and continue to just educate women. One, that they have a choice. And two, if they want to come and see us, that they can get an order. And if they can't, we can help them with that, right? And that they don't have to wait 6 months if they felt a lump in their breast, because there's a backlog in the area for a mammogram, that they can have peace of mind next Tuesday and not have to wait. And so we're glad that October is coming in a good time of being so new into the business, because it brings the conversation to the forefront, I think, and we're pretty stoked about that.
That's awesome. Where can people go to learn more about your businesses and about you personally?
Yeah, thanks. So urbansweat.com or any of our Instagram pages. Each location has its own Instagram page, often its own owner. So got a great group of operating partners there. We've got 4 in the Nashville market. And with Comfort Imaging, it's comfortimagingtn.com, and with more locations and some exciting news coming very soon about that as well, where we do have the one center located in Green Hills, just in West Nashville, for anybody that's local.
Awesome. Well, it's been a delight to talk to you and to understand more about your entrepreneurial journey, Kristen. So thanks for joining today.
Thanks for having me.